All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Pain-Free Golf Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Russ. Our guest today really doesn't need much introduction if you're familiar with the golf performance space, but we want to introduce to the show Lance Gill, who is one of Golf Digest's top 50 best golf fitness trainers, owner of Lance Gill Performance, and lead instructor for TPI, or the Titleist Performance Institute. Lance, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for carving out a little bit of time.
Hey, Dr. Russ, no problem. Hope you're doing well, and thank you for getting the word out. We really appreciate all that you do.
Absolutely, man. So I'm really excited about this conversation because I think a lot of people know what you do in the golf performance space, but maybe, shine a little bit of light about maybe your background story in terms of your education, where you went to school, and maybe your early journey in terms of jobs and work environment before you ultimately landed with the Titleist Performance Institute.
Oh, that's a great question. So my family's a big medical family, from surgeons to physical therapists. Both my parents were both PTs. And, our dinner conversations were pretty interesting, talking about muscle insertions and origins and injuries. So I grew up in sports medicine, and naturally I migrated it to it in college. So I went to the University of Shenandoah in Winchester, Virginia for undergrad. I kind of migrated more into athletic training and then graduate school at University of Pittsburgh. Now, while on that road, I played Division III soccer, golf, and lacrosse. So I was playing a lot of sports, but golf has been pretty much the underlying primary sport I've ever played. So it was funny, at University of Pittsburgh, our lab was partially funded by Greg Norman. And it was pretty cool.
That is awesome.
So Greg was big, still is big on understanding why things happen in the world of golf. Why did he break down sometimes from an injury perspective or consistency on the course when it really mattered? He really wants to know a lot about it. And so we built a lab around that premise, understanding movement and why things happen the way they do. And his physical therapist, Pete Dravich, one of my mentors, kind of nurtured me through that 2 years at Pittsburgh. And one day he came to me, it was probably April 2000, and said, "Hey, Lance, you're graduating in 2 months." And I'm like, "What?" Yeah, he said, "You're graduating, so what are you going to do?" And I'm like, "What?" I didn't even think about it. I had no earthly clue what I wanted to do. But I knew I didn't want to sit on the sidelines of a JV basketball game for the rest of my life. Not that it's bad, it just wasn't for me. He goes, "Well, what do you want?" I was like, "Well, I wouldn't mind working in the golf field." Now, take yourself back to the year 2000. I don't know what you were doing, but there wasn't a lot of people doing golf-specific performance training.
Definitely not.
Tiger was.
Sure.
Right? Gary Player had talked about it, but it wasn't mainstream. So Dr. Dravich said to me, he goes, "There's this wacky doctor in Washington, D.C. who's opening up a golf gym. Maybe you should go and check him out." I was like, "Hell yeah." So I got in my car, drove 6 hours overnight to D.C., showed up at this guy's front step at about 6 a.m. It's Dr. Greg Rose.
Oh, yeah.
And he answers the door with a chainsaw, and this mask on. And he's like, "Who are you?" And I told him a little bit of my story. I had an elevator pitch ready to go. And he goes, "Holy crap." He goes, "You're very qualified." I was like, "Yeah, I'm ready for this." He goes, "Well, you're hired." I said, "Wow, this getting a job stuff is real easy." So the only problem was they weren't open for 2 or 3 months. So he goes, "I can't pay you for a while." I was like, "Dude, I don't care. As long as my dad knows I have a job, I'm happy." And we opened up the first ever golf specific gym ever. So that's where the whole process started, right there in Washington, D.C.
That's a great background story. And
Yep.
I think, when you look at TPI and obviously what it's become, obviously from that time, obviously, it's influenced our approach to the sport of golf and how we manage and understanding the why, right? And I think that background story of, I think the motivation behind wanting to get into a specific niche or getting into certain something that obviously resonates with you, I think that's super crucial for someone who's in, let's say, the healthcare field or in performance or strength and conditioning. A lot of guys, they just have a tendency to kind of just go through the motions and they're not really passionate about what they really do. And obviously you went the opposite route. You wanted to, hey, let's kind of grab the bull by the horns and figure out, this is what I want to do. How do I make that happen? And one thing led to another. And here you are with TPI.
Yeah. And that's an underlying theme that I always teach with is, listen, you got to do something you're passionate about, because if you don't, you only have a certain shelf life before it seeps through to your actions and your personality. So do what you want.
Absolutely. So tell us about maybe the collegiate golf experience, right? Again, I've had conversations with some of our college players that play golf, and obviously playing golf now compared to maybe playing back in the day is a little bit different there. Maybe kind of shed some light on your experience with, playing collegiate golf and what you thought your experience was like.
I grew up in upstate New York, and we've talked about this. And so my goal was to get the hell out of the cold weather. All right. Because, our season's like probably 3 to 4 months long.
Yeah.
And I always told my dad and mom, listen, I want to go to Ithaca, because to me that was south. It was about 4 hours south of me.
Right.
And the temperature difference between upstate New York on the Canadian border and Ithaca is massive. It's like a tropics. But Ithaca ended up being a little too expensive. So I go, Dad, here's the deal. This college in Virginia is looking at me and a couple of my friends for soccer. He goes, Virginia? And I was like, yeah. He goes, that's what my mom was upset because it's so far away. But I was like, I'd really like to go to the deep south. Little did I know,
Right.
It's still not the deep
It's
south.
not
So
at all.
I barely made it across the Mason-Dixon line. So I ended up going to Virginia, and the golf team wasn't very good. We were probably one of the worst 5 teams in the nation for Division III. But because we really just started a team up, our soccer team was pretty good. So I was pulling guys off the soccer team, the baseball team, to play golf, and we literally set the NCAA record for the highest 2-day tournament score of all time. And I finished 6th in the tournament. So you got to remember that. You got to keep that in perspective.
Right.
So my golf experience in college was honestly pretty bad. And let me tell you why. I got to a place in high school where I was a 0 handicap, and I'm like, well, I'm going to go to college and get even better. And I go to college, and we're playing D1, D2, D3 schools in the South. And I'm just getting annihilated, like destroyed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is going on? And under that sort of pressure, my game didn't hold up. So there was a little something that was going on that I didn't know. And my coach at the time had no idea. And it really turned me off to the game of golf, to the point I probably quit for a year and a half, late my senior year. I had enough because I couldn't find the answer.
Huh. That's interesting. And, honestly,
Yeah.
I've heard a couple of stories of that route where they're so well into it, and then something goes awry, and then you almost give it up for a while just because you can't figure it out. Right. And maybe that you can kind of speak on that a little bit more too.
So it was back in 1997, my senior season. And this story's never been told before, but I got to the point where I was shooting high 70s, low 80s, and that was regression from where I was as a senior in high school. And now I'm a senior in college. I'm like, this is frustrating. And I was asking the questions, but I couldn't get the answers as to why I was having such consistency issues and putting issues, just no answers. And I got to the point where I'm like, I'm done. So I said, Coach, I'm not playing anymore. And this is what happens. I'm in an anatomy lab one day because it's a Friday. We're getting ready for a big test. And there's about 150 people in this amphitheater at school. And I'm in the back row taking notes. And all of a sudden I see 2 guys walking in the room. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's Jim and Scott, 2 guys on my golf team. Why are they in here? Because they are not medical at all. Those bastards walked up, and the instructor's like, can I help you? And they're like, we'll just be a minute. They walked up to my seat, say, hey, Lance, what are you doing? I was like, I'm in anatomy. What are you doing? Everybody's watching me. They're like, sorry to do this. They duct taped me. They grabbed me, duct taped me, my whole body like a cocoon, picked me up, carried me out of anatomy lab, put me in a van, and we drove to Georgia for a golf tournament. They had everything ready. Yeah, I got kidnapped.
Wow.
So this is 1997. I'm like, this is horrible. This is horrible. Why am I doing this? And from there, I had to have some soul searching as to what was going on with my golf swing that really made me so frustrated. And at the end of the day, I think my body and my golf swing weren't in sync. And this led me to doing a little bit more research, finding University of Pittsburgh, finding the laboratory sponsored by Greg Norman, which was maybe I can get an answer for myself. So why did I go to school at Pitt for grad? Probably to get an answer for myself. And I think the answer ended up being a lot bigger than I thought it was.
Absolutely. No question. It's obviously led you down this path that obviously you haven't looked back since, it seems like, right?
No, I haven't.
Awesome. So let's do this. Let's fast forward to, let's say, your Titleist Performance Institute days. Now, maybe kind of give us maybe just like some background stories as to what a day looks like for you right now. Obviously, we're recording this podcast during a pandemic, right? So it's a little different now. I'm sure you're doing a lot more virtual stuff, but when you're in the thick of it, maybe kind of take us through a day of what your day might look like, whether you're working with Lance Gill Performance or whether you're working at TPI, or maybe it's a combination of both. It almost sounds like, right? So maybe kind of take us through a day with you as to how that looks.
Well, it's a great question. So on a traditional day, what I do is I work at the Institute, the TPI. TPI is owned by Titleist as a ball manufacturer, club manufacturer, shoes, wedges. When we've been hosting experiences for the last 20 years there, where we bring in players to either go through club fitting, it's a 3-hour process, or a body fitting, if you will. So we analyze your body, your positives, your negatives, your physical limitations, and then we compare that to your golf swing. Using video technology, 3D technology, force and pressure technology, launch monitors, so we can understand what your body is doing, what your golf swing is doing, and are they fighting or are they happily united together?
Yeah.
Traditionally, they're fighting somewhat. That's where our magic comes in. If you're trying to do something and it all centers around you as the client, if you're trying to do something, say, I'd like to hit the ball 10 yards farther without so much curvature to the right. My ball curves too far to the right and thereby it loses yardage. We base all of our programming on what your goals are. And then we look at your body, we look at your swing, we look at your launch, we look at your clubs, and we try to determine where are the big leaks, where are the big holes that are preventing you from achieving that. And then we plug those leaks up, be it with fitness programming, medical programming, biomechanical, swing technique, or equipment, or traditionally it's usually a combination of all three.
Yeah.
But the magical part is understanding how one affects the other category, because if you just work in one silo, what you're going to do is if you change the equipment significantly to suit a need, you're going to place an undue stress on the body and something else happens. So you have to work at it as a holistic approach so you can get the best results for your client.
Yeah. I mean, I think that integrated model, like you're talking about, obviously with you, Jason, and Mark, teaching a lot of the courses across the country, that integrated model is so important. And like you said, if you're siloed in one area, and we see this a lot in healthcare now, where let's say someone is a golf athlete and maybe is dealing with an injury or is dealing with maybe some swing faults that they don't know how to address it. They go to let's say a generalist that might not necessarily know the sport of golf or the demand of the sport of golf, right? And
Yep.
we see that a lot in our community where a lot of golfers come to us and they're like, hey, I've got this going on. Well, let's look at what's going on physically to see, is that the low-hanging fruit, right? And if that's a low-hanging fruit, we can help you with that. But also we can put you in contact with other people that can help you with the club fitting and all the other instruction part of it, so that, again, it's that integrated model that I think is lacking sorely in today's healthcare with regards to sports specific, but also in particular, mainly golf.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I'm seeing some of the best practitioners in the world of medicine actually migrate out of the normal realm of either outpatient or inpatient care in the physical therapy world, we'll say. And they learn a basis of golf. They learn how to talk golf. They learn the vernacular of golf. And then they apply their amazing skill sets in that. And I've seen them so successful that they naturally migrate almost out of the traditional PT realm,
Yeah.
almost into solely concierge golf, physical therapy, and performance training. It's radical. And I think the physical therapy market is primed for this, because you guys and ladies have such an amazing skill set of assessment and then practical approach to rehabilitating injury or rehabilitating a deficiency in movement.
Yeah.
And that itself goes so far in the world of golf that you can't believe. Now, the only hurdle that therapists traditionally face is they don't know how to speak the language of the golfer. You can be the smartest doctor in the world. If you can't talk golf, I'm telling you, you've lost the client. But the good therapists are really learning how to talk golf, and it's really translating into a good business model, number one, for the therapist, and the golfers are getting phenomenally better.
Yeah. I mean, I think you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, a perfect example is we had a client come to us after they went to a healthcare provider, and the first healthcare provider says like he didn't understand golf at all. He didn't know what we were talking about. So he found me just via the internet. He's like, hey, listen, I saw that you're TPI certified. Obviously, you understand the sport of golf. You know, we have a satellite office at our private country club. He's like, you do a lot with golf. He's like, so people will just naturally gravitate that way because they want providers that understand what they're dealing with instead of just, you know, throw something on the wall and see what sticks, you know?
You know what? It's amazing. So one of the first meetings we ever had when we opened up TPI, this is back in 2003, 4, Dr. Greg Rose is a chiropractor. Now, traditionally, chiropractors and PTs haven't seen eye to eye on a lot of things. And Dr. Rose came to me and said, Lance, you're an athletic trainer. I'm a chiro. He goes, I want to really make this, and we're at the outset of the educational series, the level 1s, 2s, and 3s. He goes, I really want to make this welcoming to everybody of all genres of medical background. So I'm going to have a meeting with this physical therapist, and I want you to come because I don't want it to be confrontational. Not that I'm going to fight him or anything.
Right.
He goes, I just want to have a barrier, and you as an athletic trainer can see both worlds. I was like, perfect. So the meeting was actually with Dr. Mike Boyd. Now, Dr. Boyd's one of the leading physical therapists on the planet. He was knighted by the Queen of England. What? I mean, what is that crap?
Right.
So we go to this meeting. This was in Phoenix at a restaurant, pizza restaurant. It was really nice. And it was phenomenal. It was phenomenal because I found myself not listening to Mike. I was actually educating Mike on the world of golf because he was a PT, high level education, but he wasn't really savvy with golf. You know, fast forward 4 or 5 years, he's the medical director for TPI along with Dr. Rose and Gray Cook and some other doctors. And he is now running the Nashville Hip Institute Therapy Department, which is probably the leading provider for hip procedures for golf, hockey, baseball. He has branched out so much with his knowledge and education on the world of golf that people now seek him out from everywhere on the planet, solely because they trust that he knows about golf.
Great.
Before, that would have been a barrier, but through education, no longer a barrier in the world's leading purveyor of that entity.
Yeah, and I think when you look at healthcare, and again, we won't, you know, harp on this too much, but the model of healthcare of, you know, seeing multiple clients or athletes per hour and things like that, like in your traditional insurance-based model, it's just not conducive to helping people maybe the way you want, right? So again, our model is more one-on-one. It's more strength performance-based with some rehab principles in there. And I think ultimately people see the difference. And when they see the difference, and obviously because we speak the language and understand the sport of golf, that goes a long way. And again, like you talked about, having people value and understand what they're looking for and what they need.
I always felt like that was the biggest disappointment in physical therapy and chiropractor is that you find practitioners put people together and give them life back, basically. So if you can't walk, you're going to die eventually.
Yeah.
If you can't move, you're going to degrade. So physical therapists, medical practitioners, physios, they really restore life. Now it's a pretty it's saintly, if you will. But the problem is our clients don't remember us in the grand scheme of things. They don't remember us 2 to 3 years down the road. Who was that therapist that rehabbed my hip and did so well? Well, that's the problem because we were seeing our clients 15, 20 minutes and it's in and out, in and out, in and out. There was no bond, no relationship. I do see the trend turning to more of that little bit more one-on-one focus. And I'm glad you're doing that because at the end of the day, that's what golfers really want. They want the bond. They're not buying your doctorate degree. They're buying you as a person. And that relationship goes everywhere.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we would be remiss not to ask you about training on a golf performance podcast. So maybe kind of shed some light or maybe talk about some of the common things that you address either from an assessment or training standpoint for either, let's say, a player on tour or maybe even just a recreational golfer.
Okay. So the first thing I'd want all your listeners to understand is that you need to be assessed. And you said the word right in your question. The assessment process is probably the number one overlooked piece in any golf performance. So I see too many people that want to do X, Y, or Z with their golf game. Hey, I don't want my back to hurt. All right. So the first thing that they're going to ask for is, what am I doing wrong in my swing? But we take a step back, and thanks to the physical therapy world, because they taught us this, before we even do anything, let's find out what you can or cannot do. So that integral part of the physical assessment is everything. And let me tell you, I physically assess my athletes every single time I see them. Every time I see them.
No brainer.
People are like, wow, does that take forever? Now it doesn't even make you flinch hearing that, but everybody else in the world's like, well, I was doing it on a quarterly basis. I'm like, okay, I'm glad you were. But the problem is athletes change from day to day, as we know. And doing a pelvic tilt test or a shoulder flexion test takes about 3 seconds. Come on.
Yep.
So we assess our athletes every single day so that we know why we're training and what to train most efficiently. That's the key. I don't care what exercise philosophy you go with. I don't care what kind of mobility drills you're doing or modalities. Don't care. Make sure you know why you're doing them first so that you get to the better tool faster. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think that whole idea of assess, reassess every time a person comes in is crucial, right? Because like you said, there are so many other factors outside the physical limitations that people are dealing with nowadays. Sleep, stress, all these other things, nutrition, that obviously can tell a story. And if someone isn't feeling great that day and all of a sudden they're showing it physically, you need to be able to assess that. And if you're not assessing that, you're missing the boat with regards to your programming and all the bells and whistles that you want to implement. It makes no sense to implement them if you don't know the why behind it.
Correct. And it also gives us an objective measuring tool whereas too many of us in the fitness or golf world use subjective only.
Sure.
Well, I feel like I'm hitting it better. I feel great. The problem with that, it doesn't build a long-term bond with the client or the patient, in my perspective, because your good feel today could be the same good feel you have with somebody else in another tournament down the road.
Right.
And now your brain's like, well, I feel good with this guy. And it's always a constant, well, who's going to give me the next fix?
Yep.
Whereas if you can add objective measures to a good feel, well, I feel good and my ball is carrying 296 yards. Whereas I go down the road, I feel good, but my ball's carrying 279. Oh, that objective measurement tells me a lot.
Absolutely.
And I always try to implant that and educate my clients with that so that they can attach a reality to a feel, because feel and real, as we know, aren't always the same.
Absolutely. 100% agree. All right, so let's do this. Let's transition to our segment called What's in the Bag, right? Although we have a strong idea as to what clubs you might be using, golf enthusiasts always love to hear kind of some of the details and specs of people and what they're swinging nowadays. So why don't you maybe tell us a little bit about what you got in your bag and what you're swinging nowadays?
Well, I used to be a MB guy. I was hitting MBs all the time, muscle back, Titleist 680s, loved them. And one of my buddies, who's a +4 in New Jersey, Jim Beadle, he's like, dude, why are you hitting those? You're not good enough. I was like, shut your mouth. So he kept just digging me every seminar we go to. And I'm like, dude, fine. So I sent my MBs to him. And here's the reason why. And by the way, Adam Scott gave me those clubs. So it was really hard to get rid of them.
Sure.
He comes in the week before he wins the Masters. This is no joke. It was after a tournament, I think in South Carolina or something. And he comes in and he just won that tournament. And he's like, hey, he goes, is anybody here from the clubs? I was like, no, it's early in the morning. He goes, listen, I got to get these clubs. And they were chrome MBs, beautiful clubs. He goes, I want to get these satin finished. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, they said they're going to get them satin. So they take off the shininess and just make them a little duller. I was like, okay, I'll take them. And then one of the head club fitters walks in. He goes, Adam, what's up? He goes, yeah, I just want you guys to brush these. Because at that time, they used to just take a brush, steel brush, and make them dull. And he goes, I just want these satins. And Larry goes, dude, why? He goes, we can just get you a new club. We're making them in satin now. He goes, oh, you don't have to grind them. He goes, no, we'll just make you a whole new set. He goes, fine. And I have all of Adam Scott's clubs they just won a tournament with. And he goes, take them, do whatever you want. I was like, you just won with it. He goes, doesn't matter to me. I was like, so I've been using Adam Scott's clubs for 5 or 6 years. And Jim goes, I'll take them. So I gave Jim the clubs, and then I went and got fit. Now I'm hitting CBs, because one of my old players, Julia Molinaro, on the LPGA tour, was hitting these CBs. And every once in a while on the range, I hit balls with her. And I'm like, geez, I love these things. They're so easy to hit. Like, you can't even make the ball go off fine. She's just looking at me crazy. And tour pros, and the center of their face is all worn out. And so she's like, yeah, I'm getting a new set. I was like, I'll take those. She goes, you want them? I was like, yeah. So I hit her CBs for 2 or 3 years until I got the newer models. And then I'm in the third version of the CBs. So it's kind of a half blade, half cavity back. Beautiful, beautiful set. Now, woods, Definitely been upgraded to the TS2. Love it. And then went to a 45-inch shaft. Absolutely love that driver. It's
Nice.
phenomenal.
Yeah, we just got a TS2 as well. It's
Did you?
phenomenal. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, my biggest problem with my bag is my wedges, and this is weird because I have a real good relationship with Bob Bokey. He's at the facility all the time. We're teaching together right next to each other, and I'm hitting SM6s, and he always walks in. He's like, "Why are you still hitting the sixes?" I was like, "I just don't know anybody in the wedge business." He's offered to give me like SMA custom grinds. I'm like, no, I'm fine. So I'll be upgrading those soon.
Yeah, I'm sure. That's awesome. How about putter? What do you got for putter?
Man, I'm using a Phantom right now, Scotty Cameron.
Yep.
I'm the world's worst putter. It's Greg Norman asked me this. He goes, "What do you want to do?" And I was at Pitt, and I'm like, "I want to be a pro golfer like you." He's like, "Great." He goes, "You got a great swing." I'm like, "Thank you, sir." He goes, "How's your putting?" I was like, "I was ranked almost dead last in college for putts per round." He's like, "Ooh, this is not going to be good." So I'm not very good putter. That's my Achilles heel, if you will. But I love that Phantom putter. It's gorgeous.
Phenomenal putter. Yeah. All right. So let's do this. Go ahead, Lance. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the Phantom really was a byproduct. I think of the Spider. I think they kind of not ripped it off, but gave a competing model to the Spider. And I got in trouble at Titleist because I was using a TaylorMade, one of those Spider putters. Loved it, little square back putter. And they're like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, I putt better. I putt like 2 strokes better.
Right.
Like,
performance is one thing, right?
They're just like, "You can't do that." I'm like, "Son of a bitch, really?" Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's all right. That's all right. No, listen. Again, you can't bite the hand that feeds you, right? I guess that's the best way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's do this. Let's go to our shotgun round. So we're going to ask you just a bunch of questions. You're going to give us a quick answer just to kind of go through this like a lightning round, right? So This might be hard for you. Favorite golfer?
Greg Norman, and I'm a big Tiger Woods fan.
I mean, why not, right? I mean,
exactly.
His turnaround is it's an incredible story. It really is.
Yeah, he pisses me off a lot, but I've grown to respect him, and it's one golfer I've never been able to work with. So maybe someday we'll get that opportunity.
There you go. Maybe sooner than you think, right?
We'll see.
All right, favorite golf brand. Although I might not have an inkling as to what this might be.
Golf brand.
Golf brand.
I got to put Titleist. I've been a Titleist guy since I was running pro shops in '84.
How about a preferred drink or snack while you're playing?
I'm starting to migrate into trail mix. I really love trail mix, and a little water is good. But if I'm on the course and I'm having a good time, I'm gonna go with a little Bat Blue Light.
There you go. There's some Western New York come out there, right?
Yep, there it is.
All right, par 3 or par 5?
God, I love par 5s. Par 3s are pains in the ass. I like them. They're pretty, but man, they're hard.
They're hard. Yeah, I'm a more of a grip and rip guy there,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll take my chances with the driver and see what happens on my second shot.
Yep.
How about cart or walk?
I play 5 or 6 strokes better when I walk, so I'm a huge fan of walking. I just wish the industry would go to it more, especially with a caddy.
That's a phenomenal idea.
Mm-hmm.
Wonder what that might take in order for that to become more the mainstream than anything else. But
just follow the money. It's quite easy, but it can be done very easy.
Hey, that's a good thought. All right, Caddyshack or Happy Gilmore?
I'm a Happy Gilmore guy. Caddyshack frustrates me.
Yeah, listen, Chubbs is one of my favorite characters in that movie, man.
Yes.
All right, how about, I know you got a lot of them. How about favorite golf memory for you?
Oh, favorite golf memory. There's so many of them. I had a hole-in-one when I was 12 years old in the tournament. It was my only hole-in-one, 155 yards, and I wasn't playing so well. I got a bogey on the first hole. I got a 10 on the second hole because I jacked 2 out of bounds. Step up, I was pissed. And I was 12, so I hit a 3-iron from about 150 yards, and I just basically hoselled it. So it was this low spinning fader. It was a slice. Hit one time, hits the pin, goes in. Woo, 5-10-1. So that's probably one of my favorite memories in golf so far.
Wow, 12 years old, hole-in-one.
Yeah, so long ago. But another good memory is we got to work a lot with Padraig Harrington in his prime. And me and Padraig went out and played one day here in San Diego at the Grand. And he's like, "Let's play straight up." I'm like, "Straight up?" No, I said that. I said, "Let's play straight up." He goes, "No, I'll give you 4 shots aside." So we played, and I ended up destroying him. I shot a 71. He shot a 70 or 71. We're basically dead even, but with strokes, I beat him.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
Must have been on, man.
Yeah, it was. I still got the scorecard, so it's
There you go. That's perfect. All right.
yeah.
So last question in the shotgun round. Maybe I know you know a lot of people in the golf realm. Maybe give us a recommendation of someone you'd think we should reach out to be a guest on the show.
Well, from a performance perspective, I would go to Dr. Mike Boyd. I would ask him. He is one of the best storytellers on the planet, and his diverse background can absolutely drive home points. This guy can pull from NBA, pro football, hockey, anywhere on the planet. He can relate it back to why we're doing what we're doing in golf. And his medical background is by far the highest I've ever seen. He's my mentor, and I think he would do awesome on your podcast.
That's awesome. Yeah. Again, Mike, listen, he's a guy I followed very, like, even when I was in my exercise science degree, his name came up all the time. So that would be awesome. I'll probably have an opportunity to reach out to him and see what we can do.
I'll set it up for you.
I appreciate that. All right. So let's do this. Words of wisdom, maybe for someone who is in the fitness space or performance space, or even let's say medical, and maybe wants to get into the golf niche. I mean, what would your recommendation be? Where would you start with that?
Well, I think the easiest way to start is at the foundation, like which you're so good at, what we're so good at, is understanding what the golfer can or cannot do, which is the movement screen. So if you don't have any background, I'd say a TPI level 1 is pretty good start point. Now, you can say I'm slightly biased, but I really believe in that model of understanding what your golfer can do. Become an excellent physical screener. Everybody has exercises. Everybody's going to be an expert in some sort of degree of fitness or medicine. Let's get to the reason why we're doing our exercises better. And that starts with the physical screen. So that'd be my first words of wisdom. The second would be, don't be afraid to learn outside your box. I found myself 2 years ago at a world convention for hip surgeons. It's called ISHA, International Society of Hip Arthroscopy. Holy cow, I was out of my realm. I mean, there's 500 of the world's best hip surgeons at this conference, and I was presenting. I'm like, what am I doing here? And it's in Melbourne, Australia. But I put myself outside my comfort zone so I could talk to another group, educate them on what I have to understand about the game of golf, and listen to what they have about general world. And it was amazing, the collaboration that came on. So I would encourage people to go outside their field and learn about golf, especially, as well as medicine, so you can know why you're doing what you're doing.
Absolutely. I think, in the health and fitness medical worlds, I mean, there's almost like a lot of turf wars when you look at it, right? People are just, there's a lot of bias and a lot of maybe a little bit of ego too with regards to this stuff. And ultimately, we're trying to serve a client that needs help. And if they need help either from ourselves or someone else, whatever works best to help them get better, I think is the key part. And I think if we miss that, then we're missing the opportunity to serve a client in a better realm,
You just brought up a good point. And to summarize what you said, here's how I hear it. Find out what your client wants. Why are they there to see you? Even if you're a therapist, you may assume that they're there to stay out of pain, but that might not be the real reason. If you can get to the root cause of what the client needs, and then everything you do, you structured around that need, you're invaluable to them. And that's how you get things done. And that's how change is made. So find out what they need.
Yeah, and again, going back to where to start. And again, I think the framework that the TPI Level 1 certification provides for someone who maybe isn't familiar with golf, I mean, it's crucial, right? From an assessment standpoint, again, for us who I think really value the assessment aspect of it, if you don't know what you're dealing with, you cannot provide a sound exercise program or training program to get them where they want to be, right? And understanding where their goals are is one thing, but how to get them there is another, right? And I think like you mentioned, the TPI Level 1 certification is a great framework for most people that want to get into this space to be able to understand the assessment and then from there provide a little bit better detail in terms of your training.
You're 100% right. You got to get in. You got to be proficient at that. And that goes from golf professionals to fitness to medical. I want them all learning the same thing so that we can talk the same language. And once we talk that same language of what's wrong or what's not effective, man, the world's your oyster. You can do whatever you want with an athlete, and you can actually get results with them. And that's why we're here. That's why you're doing so well with your business, is you're getting results with your athletes, and they go out and refer people. And most importantly, they remember your name.
You got it.
And that's a big deal.
It's a big deal for sure. All right. So for those who maybe want to learn more about what you're doing with TPI, or maybe even just with your own company, and maybe want to reach out,
What's
the best way for them to do that?
Easiest way is I'm at www.lgperformance. That's for lancegillperformance.com. My Twitter is that. My Facebook is that. My Instagram is LGP_Inc. Please check it out. You can direct message me, send me emails, whatever you got, and I'll answer them as fast as I can. If you're interested in those seminars, go to www.mytpi.com. Look up the certification tab, and it's going to have a whole slew of information. The level 1 is where we start. You'll get online and on-site options. So check it out. If you have questions, please let me know. I'd love to work through those with you.
Lance, this was a great conversation, man. I really appreciate, again, the opportunity to speak with you, and also you carving out some time to kind of spend some time with us.
Anytime, man. Anytime. Thanks for what you're doing up there. I know you're in a hot spot of golf. It's one of the meccas, the unheard of meccas. So keep it going and keep the people in your region doing well. So I'm proud of you.
I appreciate it, man. So, all right, guys. So for more information on what we discussed on today's podcast, be sure to check out the show notes. Thanks so much for listening to the Pain Free Golf Performance Podcast, where we are dedicated to helping you play your best golf yet. See you next time.